So I'm Alban Marie, I'm a PhD candidate, and today I will present you what I have done in my thesis. So the title of my thesis is Exploration of Lossy Image Coding Trade-off between Rate, Machine Perception, and Quality. So this work has been supervised by Carole Desnos, Luce Morin, and Lausanne. Okay, so my work can be summarized with the title Video Coding for Machine. So we will explain each part of this work. So first, what is a machine? So in the context of this thesis, a machine is any visual task that is capable of obtaining high-level understanding of an image or video. So let's see some example. So we can think, for example, as image classification. So if we give a natural image, what we want to recognize in the image is what we have inside. So for example, it can be a cat, a dog, or pretty much anything. We can think of face recognition. So face recognition, so if you see two different faces, you want to be able to say if it's the same person or not. You can think also of object detection, which is very similar to image classification, at the difference that you want to be able to localize with a bounding box where the object is inside the image. And for example, we can also think of semantic or instance segmentation, where instead of giving one class for every for whole image, we want to be able to labelize each pixel individually. So in our work, we will focus on these two vision tasks because they are quite complementary. So for example, image classification is high level because we have to give only one class for the whole image, while semantic segmentation requires much precise information to be given by the vision task. So this vision task can be used in plenty of applications. So we can think, for example, of autonomous driving, where we want to be able, for example, to recognize traffic sign to help the driver. We can think of smart city for traffic regulation or traffic fluidity. We can think of surveillance application, where we want to be able to without having to use any human intervention, we want to be able to recognize what we want to recognize. We can also think of other type of image modality. So for example, in agriculture, we can use infrared images to give better information about fields, crops, and so on. So now we have talked about machine. What we want to do is to explain why do we need video coding? What is the point of using video coding? So let's start with a very simple example. Let's say that we want to compute a vision task. So the most naive way is to do what we call edge computing, which consists of taking one camera and directly after computing the vision task with the recorded image or video. So if we do that, the problem that come most of the time is that most cameras that can be used are embedded. For example, smartphones have limited resources, and so we cannot compute vision task model, which sometimes are quite heavy in terms of computation. So what we want to do, we want to offload the computation somewhere else, for example, on an external server. So this is what we do there. So we record the image or the video, we offload the computation of the vision task somewhere else. So the problem by doing that is that transferring the raw image or video without doing any kind of compression is pretty much impossible nowadays because this type of data are too voluminous. So what we need to do is to introduce lossy compression with a video encoder and a video decoder. And by doing that, we are able to record the data and transfer it somewhere else and compute the vision task that we want to compute. So this is what we call video coding for machine. And lastly, we can think of a last paradigm, which is called feature coding for machine, where in this one, instead of computing the vision task on the external server, we'll split it into two parts. The first part will be computed on the camera side, and the second part will be computed on the external server. And so what we transfer is an intermediary state between the two. And by doing that, we reduce the offload advantages because we still have to compute a part of the vision task on the camera side. So in our work, we consider the video coding for machine paradigm for the mentioned points. So there is a big coding opportunity. Most of the data that we want to transfer is meant to be seen by a machine only once. So we don't need to store it in any way. We don't need to care to have a quality that is good enough because maybe a human will see it afterwards. We just need to compress it good enough so that the vision task can be done efficiently. And after that, we have no more need to have good quality. So this gives us a big coding opportunity. So in a nutshell, if we want to summarize the video coding for machine, what we want to do is two different things. We want to first reduce as much as possible the bandwidth that we will use. And secondly, we want to maintain as much as possible the performance of the vision task. And these two terms are antagonists. What are the drawbacks of such pipeline? So one of the drawbacks is that by using video coding, most of compression algorithms are lossy compression. So they introduce artifacts into the image and video. And so if we take an image, we pass it to an encoder and a decoder, the image will result in artifacts. And these artifacts will affect the performance of the vision task. So what we want to do is to find a way so that the vision task that will be at the end of our pipeline will be resilient to such artifacts. So one problematic is to think on a way to enhance this resilience. So second, there are many codecs, image encoder, video decoders that have been proposed in the literature throughout the years. So we can think of, for example, many standardization committees. So we can think, for example, at JPEG that has proposed many standards. So we can think of JPEG, JPEG 2000, JPEG XL, JPEG XR, and so on. But there are many more. We can think, for example, at Motion Picture Expert Group also, which have proposed AVC, HVC, VVC standard. There is also Alliance for Open Media, which has proposed royalty-free standard. So there are many standards in the literature. So there is many ways to do this compression. However, all of this compression has been done in a way so that the goal was to preserve the performance, the perceptual quality according to the human vision. So what we want to preserve is the quality according to our eyes. But in our case, what we want to do is to preserve the quality not for human, but for machine. So there is a different context, and maybe these encoders are not suited for this case. So lastly, all of these encoders work in a traditional way. So what I mean by traditional way is using predictive coding, transform coding, entropy coding, block-based encoding, such kind of stuff. But nowadays, other kind of encoding are emerging, which are artificial intelligence-based encoders. So we can think, for example, at the JPEG standardization committee that is proposing the JPEG AA standard. We can also, there is also other kind of standardization committees such as the MPAA. And lastly, we have MPEG that is aiming to provide a standard for both for machine perception using maybe both traditional and IA-based encoding techniques. So in our work, we want to focus on traditional encoder and for machine perception only. And the reason we want to do that is that in that way we can use existing standard for human perception in a backward compatibility way, and also because we can reuse existing hardware, it requires less mineral resources, which is beneficial from an ecological point of view. So one question that is raised is how can we adapt such encoder for machine perception? And lastly, so let's take a look at the way traditional encoder works. So traditional encoder first starts by dividing an image. If we want to encode an image, dividing the image into blocks. Each blocks will be encoded separately. And let's say that we want to encode this block. What we have to do is to choose between many different mode decision and find the best one. So for example, we can think of using horizontal prediction or vertical prediction. This prediction will result in different residual blocks that we want to transfer. And to find the best one, what we do is to solve what is called the rate distortion optimization, which consists of minimizing jointly the distortion and the rate. And by finding the encoding modes that result in the lowest score, we are able to find the best way to encode a given block. So in that sense, because we rely on a distortion measure, what we want to ask is this distortion measure adapted for machine perception or not? So if we want to summarize, our first problematic is how to enhance vision task resilience to composition artifacts. Our second problematic, can a traditional encoder be adapted for machine perception? And our third problematic, is the distortion measure adapted for machine perception or not? So this has resulted in different publications in international conferences, which tackle various parts of the video coding for machine pipeline. And in this presentation, we will focus on 3 of them that I will present just now. So I will start with the first one, which is enhancing machine resilience to compression artifacts. Okay, so as we saw in the introduction, video coding causes artifacts. So what we want to do is to make sure our vision task is able to perform a given task well enough, even so we have artifacts introduced into image. So how are we going to do that? So we propose 2 different techniques. The first one, we call it progressive training. So let's take a look at the way a given vision task is trained first. So we start with an image. The image is given to a vision task, which provides us a prediction. The prediction can be compared against a ground truth. And with these 2, we can compute what is called a loss function. And this loss function helps us to say if the prediction is either good or bad. And using this loss function, we are able to do some backpropagation. And this backpropagation helps us to train our vision task to give better prediction. And by providing more and more image to the vision task, we are able to train the model and hopefully get better prediction. So the main idea behind progressive training is instead of training one vision task on a given quality, what we will start to do is training at a high quality. And as the training progresses, as the epochs advance, we will lower the quality progressively. And so this way, we'll train our vision task in a more smooth manner, which will help us to have a better result at the end. So the way we lower the quality is driven by this formula, which is in short an exponential decay. And if we have to take a look at only one parameter, we have the parameter S, which is the convergence speed parameter, which allows us to control if we want the quality to decay either fast or quite slow. Okay, so if we go to the second proposition, so if we go back to the main pipeline that we have to train our vision task, we have our loss function. Our loss function is given just there. So what we want to do first is instead of training on the undistorted image high, we want to train on the distorted image. So by using the distorted image using the default loss function. And on top of that, we want to add what we call a regularization term, which is just there, which consists, which is given just there. So what this regularization term does. So instead of using only one vision task F, we use also another vision task G, where the weights are fixed. So we do not train it this one. The vision task G will use as input the undistorted image and will provide the prediction on this undistorted image. And the vision task F will provide a prediction on the distorted image. And what we want to do is to minimize this function. So there is a function D, which is a distance function. And this distance function aims to minimize the distance between the prediction of the model G on the undistorted image and the prediction of the model F on the distorted image. And by minimizing this on top of the original loss function, we will be able to get hopefully better results. So to compare these 2 propositions, we will consider different training techniques from the literature and see how we compare against them. So our first step is to train a model G on undistorted image. That way we will obtain model weights, so theta g, that will take as input for different other type of training techniques. So we will consider 3 of them. So the first one is a very naive one, so we call it baseline. It consists of taking back the model G, doing nothing else, and give as input the distorted image. So that way we can evaluate if not doing any reframing is suitable for this vision task or not. The second consists of taking as input the model weights theta G and provide them as input of another vision task, the vision task F, that we will train and fine-tune on distorted image. So in this case, we consider 1 DNN weights per coding configuration. So if you want to evaluate on multiple coding configuration, we will consider as many DNN weights. And lastly, we have what we call data augmentation, which is very similar to the fine-tuning one, at the exception that instead of training 1 model per coding configuration, we'll train 1 model for each of the coding configuration at once. So this has been proposed in the literature in the context of video coding for machine. So let's take a look at the result. So we will consider the semantic segmentation vision task. We will use the Cityscapes dataset, and we will use the VV-ENC encoder. So we will compare 2 different things. The first one is the training complexity, so the lower the better. And the second one is the John-Teger delta rate, so which use the machine measure of performance. So what it is, so if we have, for example, 20% of BD rate, this means that to have equivalent performance of machine perception, we require to use 20% more rate to have the same machine performance. So the lower, the better. And we compare against the fine-tuning techniques with reference to the fine-tuning technique. So as we can see, if we use the baseline, we have a very, very high BD rate score, which means that the baseline strategy is not able to be resilient to any kind of compression artifact. If we use the data augmentation, we can see that we have a lower BD rate score compared to the baseline, but it is still higher compared to fine-tuning. So this means that the model is not able to generalize, suffer from a bit of generalization on all the coding techniques. But it is at the advantage of having a faster training complexity. So if we compare to these 3 methods to our progressive training, so if we consider the fastest one with the highest value of S, we can see that we have a faster training compared to the data augmentation one, and on the same, we also have a lower BD rate score. So this method is better overall. And if we take a look at the slowest training, we have faster training compared to the fine-tuning approach, and we also have better score in terms of rate distortion trade-offs. So overall, our approach are better compared to existing ones. So in this last result, we will compare the 2 techniques that we have proposed in a combined way. So we consider 2 vision tasks. So at the left, image classification, and at the right, vision task. At the right, semantic segmentation. And for both, we consider the JPEG encoder. So again, we have the same axis as before. So at the bottom, we have the training complexity. So at the left, it's the best. And on the other axis, we have the BD rate. So on the bottom, it's the best. And as we can see, so we compare against the fine-tuning again, which is in the middle, just there. And as you can see, by using progressive training with the regularization term for the image classification, we have better trade-offs. And by using the progressive training with or without the regularization term, we have also better trade-off for the semantic segmentation. So as a conclusion for this contribution, we have shown that using our 2 techniques, we have greater machine performance at equivalent rates. We have also lower training complexity compared to other training strategies. We have equivalent inference time because our method tackles only the training part. So once deployed in a real-world application, we do not increase the inference time. But lastly, our progressive training comes at a drawback because we require to have multiple DNN weights for each coding configuration, which is a drawback. So we will go to the second contribution, which is called evaluation of image quality assessment metric for machine-to-machine communication. Okay, so what is the motivation behind this contribution? So let's say that we have an image or a video, and we want to evaluate if this image is good according to machine perception. So in other terms, we want to be able to say if a given machine that take as input this image will be able to provide accurate prediction or not. So one solution is very naive, is just to consider many vision tasks, many models, and to just measure if this vision task is good or not. So this comes with some disadvantage. It is quite impractical in practice, and it is also time-consuming. So another solution will be to use image quality assessment metric, such as it has been done with human perception, and to assess the machine perception using such quality metrics. So this raises the question, because there are many quality metrics that have been proposed in the literature for human perception, are these quality metrics adapted in the context of machine perception or not? So this is what we want to answer. So in this paper, we will propose an evaluation protocol that will be able to measure this kind of correlation. So we'll start with an image which is undistorted. We'll first use a lossy encoder to obtain a distorted version of this same image. Using these two images, we are able to compute a full reference image quality assessment metric between these two images. So this can be, for example, PSNR, SSIM, and so on. Using these two images, we can use any kind of vision task. So in our case, we will use semantic segmentation, and we can use this vision task model on both the undistorted and distorted image. That way, we will obtain two different types of prediction, and this type of prediction will be able to be used to see if the performance of the machine is either good or bad. So note that in our case, we will compare ourselves to the prediction on the undistorted image and not the ground truth not the ground truth. So this has been proposed in the literature. It is named as pseudo ground truth in the context of video coding information. So lastly, between the two predictions, we are able to compute pixel-wise accuracy, which will serve as a machine perception measure to say if the vision task prediction is of good quality or bad quality according to the prediction on the undistorted version. And finally, if we compute this metric score and this machine perception scores on a whole data set, we are able to measure on an image level if there is some correlation or not between this metrics and our machine perception. So secondly, what we also want to do is to measure the correlation on a block level. So why do we want to do that? As we saw in the introduction, the traditional encoding techniques rely on a block-based strategy. And in order to find the best encoding mode, we need to measure the distortion on a block level and see if and use this information to find the best encoding mode. So in that sense, we expect that the distortion measure is correlated with the machine perception because what we want to preserve is the machine perception at the end. So we want to measure on a block level to see if this correlation exists or not. So what we will do for that, we'll take back the same pipeline as before, and on each of these 4 groups of images, we will extract blocks at a random location. So this will give us blocks on undistorted image, distorted image, prediction on undistorted and prediction on distorted. And similar as before, we can compute full reference image quality assessment metric, pixel-wise accuracy, and see if there is a correlation on this block level. To perform the block level experiment, we need to sample blocks from the image. So what we need to think of a block sampling algorithm to do so. So one approach is what I call the naive approach, which is simply using an uniform block sampling algorithm. So just take blocks at random location in the image using a uniform probability distribution. So this comes at some disadvantages that we will see just now. If we go back to our pipeline, if we take a look at the two different predictions, and let's say that we take a block at a random location, maybe this block will be in the middle of the road, for example. And because it is on the middle of the road, every pixel in every block has the exact same prediction label. And so the resulting accuracy between, if we compare these two blocks, will be perfect accuracy, a perfect accuracy of 1. So, and this is because we have a very we have very big area containing only one class, and so it is very easy for the model, even on the distorted version, to predict road if we are on the middle of the road. And this results as if we measure the average accuracy that we'll have for each block by using this block sampling algorithm, we can see that we have very high likeliness to have blocks with perfect accuracy. So this is a problem because we don't want to measure a correlation with only scores of 1s. So what we propose instead is to use another block sampling, which is based on the machine accuracy. So we want to make sure that we have, for example, as many blocks between 0.3 and 0.4 accuracy than, for example, 0.7 and 0.8. So to do so, we will sample blocks at precise locations, which are very different compared to the uniform sampling. And this results in a uniform probability distribution of the blocks that we sample. So if we take a look at the results, so we will measure the correlation first on the image level between full reference metric and machine perception. So we will consider two different correlation measures, which are Spearman correlation and Pearson correlation. And we consider different kind of metric. So for example, PSNR, SSIM, FSSIM, LPIPS, and DISTS. So as we can see, we have correlations that are relatively high, so around 0.6 to 0.7. So this means that on average, these quality metrics are able to capture if the machine perception, the performance of the resulting of the vision task will be good or bad. Nevertheless, the scores are quite low compared to what was obtained on a database that measure the correlation with human perception. And second, if we take a look at the correlations that we have on the block level, so we can measure this correlation on different block size. So for example, 32 times 32 or 128 times 128. And we can measure the correlation on this block of various size. And as you can see, the correlations that we obtain are much lower. So they go from 0 to, at best, 0.2, which is a very low correlation score. So something else that we can see is that if we take a look at the last two lines, we can see that these metrics perform better compared to other techniques. And this is because these metrics are more recent and are based on deep learning, based on deep learning. Another thing that we can see is that the correlation that is obtained on bigger block size tend to be higher, and if the block size gets lower, it gets more and more, it gets harder and harder to get accurate prediction. So as a conclusion for this contribution, so we have proposed a study to evaluate the correlation of existing full reference image quality assessment metric with machine perception. So we propose in that manner a novel evaluation protocol. So as we saw, we have an existing correlation that is quite high on the image level, but the very low correlation on the block level implies some sub-optimalities for block-based traditional encoding techniques, because we aim to optimize a distortion measure that is not correlated with machine perception. And lastly, I will present my third contribution, which is called Toward Machine Perception Aware Rate Distortion Optimization. So as we saw in the introduction, traditional encoding techniques rely on rate distortion optimization. And rate distortion optimization is a way that helps us to say which encoding mode decision should be used to encode a given block. So for example, as we saw, we want to compare, for example, horizontal prediction with vertical prediction and see which one helps to obtain the best trade-off between distortion and the rate. So in traditional encoding, in traditional encoder, the distortion measure that is used is commonly the SSE, which is sum of square error, which is in short L2 norm between the distorted and undistorted block. So as we saw in the previous contribution, this distortion measure, this metric, might not be able to capture what is a good distortion according to machine perception. So what we propose is, instead of using this distortion measure, is to use a different distortion measure that we will propose, which is a learning-based metric that will be used instead of the SSE function and hopefully better capture machine performance and result in greater trade-offs between rate and distortion, rate and machine perception. So how does this metric work? So we will start similar to SSE function. Our metric will be a full reference metric. So we will compare an undistorted block with a distorted block. We will start by extracting some using a deep learning based feature extractor. We will extract a feature map. This feature map will pass through an average pooling to obtain a smaller feature map. We'll concatenate these two feature maps, use a multi-layer perceptron, and finally a sigmoid that will provide us a score between 0 and 1. And this score aims to be somewhat correlated with machine perception. One drawback with this approach is that, as we saw, it is very difficult to get high correlation on smaller block size. And if we look, for example, at the VTM encoder, the block size can vary from, for example, 4 by 4 pixels, which is very, very small, to 64 by 64. So it is expected that on blocks as small as 4 by 4, it is very difficult to get an accurate prediction on the performance on the resulting machine. So what we want to do is to add additional context that we have available at the encoder side. So for example, we do not know how surrounding blocks in the distorted image will be encoded, but we do know what the original image looks like. So we want to add, instead of using a block as small as 4 by 4, use a bigger block. So in the context of VTM, we'll use a CTU and not the CU coding unit. And we want to also use the chrominance information as it is available at the encoding side. And using this available information, we'll hopefully be able to predict in a more accurate way on smaller blocks machine performance. So in this case, because using a bigger, the whole CTU results in a bigger feature map, what we want to do is to use a mask that will perform the average pooling at the location that correspond to the original CU. So in that sense, we want to, so if we want to train our metric, we need to find some data to do it. So what we will do to extract, what we need is first to block on distorted and undistorted blocks. and prediction that correspond to the machine perception. So what we do in this context is we go back to the pipelines that we had in the previous contribution, and we'll extract blocks from this 4 group of image. And the first two will give us the undistorted block and distorted block, and the last two, which are the prediction blocks, will help us to measure the accuracy, similar to previous contribution, which will serve as the prediction label that we want to predict. So on top of that, our metric need to be able to perform accurately on various kind of block size that can be encountered in, for example, the VTM encoder. So what we do in that context is each batch we sample block of random size. And lastly, to avoid any overfitting problem, as the predictions that we use at training time are based on we are obtained with a semantic segmentation model that was trained on the training set of our data set. What we want to do is to not use this training set to sample blocks, because the blocks that we sample from this image seen at training time will be not representative of the performance of our semantic segmentation model. So instead of that, we want to sample blocks from another set, which in this case we consider the testing set. So first, if we take a look at the results, we measure the correlation between the predicted score of our metric and machine performance. So again, it is a pixel-wise accuracy. So we measure the correlation on various block size, and we consider different metrics from the literature. So for example, we have SSC, SAD, which are L2 and L1 norm. We have other metrics from the literature. So we consider, for example, also SSIM and DISTS. So we consider DISTS because it is the one that performs the best in the previous contribution. And lastly, we consider also feature SSC and feature SAD, which has been proposed in the video coding for machine context. And in short, this metric, instead of measuring the SSC and SAD on the pixel level, we first extract with a deep learning based model a feature map, and we measure this SSC and SAD on this feature map. So if we take a look at the correlations that we obtain, so as shown in the previous contribution, we can see that most metrics have quite low correlation, but our metric is able, because we use a learning technique, we are able to obtain better correlation with machine perception. Also, as you can see, so again, the performance gets lower as the block size gets lower, but as our metric use additional context, we are able to still get lower correlation on smaller blocks, but the speed at which the correlation decline is smaller compared to other techniques. So now that we have our metric, what we want to do is to integrate this metric into the VTM encoder. So one thing that we need to take care of is what is called the additivity property. So if we, if in the rate distortion optimization, if we want to compare two encoding techniques, one which is the no split and one with a ternary split, the way this coding configuration will be compared is by looking, is computing for each subblock the rate distortion optimization, and in this case, because we have 3 of them, we'll sum the 3 scores and compare this score with the one in the no split category. So in this context, because our metric provides score between 0 and 1, our metric will falsely favor the no split category, because our distortion measure is computed only once, so a score between 0 and 1, and compared to this one, the distortion measure will be between 0 and 3, so it will be unfavored. So what we do to compensate this problem is to ponderate our metric between 0 and 1 by the number of pixels that we have between each block. And lastly, the rate distortion optimization use lambda value, which is called the Lagrange multiplier. And this Lagrange multiplier aims to find a good balance between the distortion and the rate. And this lambda value has been tuned for the distortion measure that was used as the default distortion measure in VTM. So instead of using this distortion measure, what we want to do is to adapt the lambda value to our new metrics. So to do so, we will rely on the original function of the for the lambda value of the SSE function, but we will adapt the constant k that is given as input. And to do this, to adapt this constant k, what we do is that we use our metric. We encode using various QP, various lambda set of images. We take a look at the performance that we have. We take the points that are on the convex hull, and we look at the best trade-off. We take a look at the optimal lambda for each QP, and that way we can find the optimal value for k with least square optimization. So lastly, if we take a look at the result, so we compare ourselves with the Encore, which use the SSE function, and we compare with this Encore. So on the bottom axis, we have the bit per pixel, so the best is at the left, and on the other axis, we have the MIOU, which is mean intersection over union, which is the measure of machine perception. So the best is on the top. And as you can see, unfortunately, we have lower trade-offs. So our proposition do not compete with the existing, with the Encore, of the VTM Encore. So as a conclusion for this section, we have proposed to integrate into the rate distortion loop a learning-based quality metric that hopefully capture better the machine perception. So this metric take advantage of additional information at the encoder side. So as we saw, it is able to achieve greater correlation according to our experiment. Unfortunately, we were not able to achieve better trade-off between rate and machine perception, machine performance. So we will go to the general conclusion. So in this thesis, we have worked on various parts of the encoder, of the video coding for machine pipeline. So for example, we worked on the vision task side. We worked on publication that is relevant for both the hyperparameter decision and the video encoding, and another contribution only for the video encoder. So this contribution, some of this contribution can be complementary with any standard that will be proposed in the literature for machine perception. So if we do a brief summary, in the first contribution, we propose two training techniques that allow better trade-offs to be obtained between rate and machine performance. In the second contribution, we show that existing traditional encoders have a suboptimality in encoding mode decision because they use a block-based strategy and distortion measure are not able to capture machine performance. And lastly, in the last contribution, we try to propose an encoder that would be better adapted for machine perception. Unfortunately, we did not manage to achieve better trade-offs. So as a future work, if we look at this future work, will aim to tackle to be a continuation of the last contributions that I presented. So the goal will be to be able to, using traditional encoding techniques, to have an encoder that will be aware of machine perception. So one strategy could be similar to the one that we proposed, but instead of using deep learning based distortion measure, we could use a metric that would be more mathematically convenient for optimization. So one that is based, that is more convex and easier to optimize. The distortion could be based on unstarted feature, which will be easier and will provide lower training complexity. Also, something that should be asked and which is open in our last contribution, we were very focused on one vision task, and we evaluate on this same vision task the performance of the machine, which is not applicable in a real-world application. So one thing that should be tackled is to have a compression that is vision task agnostic. And lastly, for the last future work, we can think of the advantage of possible trade-offs between having a generalized model, between having a specialized model. So, for example, we could measure similar to the first contribution, the advantage of having a specialized model. If it is beneficial, how the specialization should be made. So, for example, should we have one DNN weight per encoder, or maybe one DNN weight for low bitrate, medium bitrate, high bitrate, for example? If we have many different models, how should we compress this model weight? So there is possibility in this context, and also maybe there is maybe it is possible to do some weight sharing by using a unified architecture. So that's it for the presentation. So thank you for your listening, and if you have any question, you are free to ask them. Thank you.